Welcome back, everyone. This is the Modern Sage Podcast, and I'm Leah Guy, your host. As always, super happy to have you here. Very excited about the show today. And before I introduce our guest, just let me remind you of a couple of things. One, all of my events, retreats, courses, books, and more are located on my website, leahguy.com. You'll also find a new page there for anyone listening in the corporate world or educational world or retreat world, my public speaking page. So I'm very excited to announce I just finished a long graduate program in public speaking. And I do teach seminars and workshops and keynote speeches and so forth for corporate and organizations. So you can find that information there. Now, you can always share these episodes. It helps the show so much. You can share it on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and also watch these episodes on my YouTube channel. So please follow me at Leah Guy Live to find all the clips, the promos, the who's coming next, and all the information there. All right. So today I'm very excited to talk to our guest. One, because she has a beautiful new book out. And two, because when I was reading her book, I don't think I've ever read a book and thought, here's my soul sister. I see myself so much in her work, aside from just a few things that I would say maybe, were a little different in approach. I've never found someone that does almost exactly what I do and how I do it. And I just love that. And I can't wait to talk to Suzanne Worthley. Suzanne is obviously an energy healer, an intuitive, a psychic empath, and an author. And her latest book is called Confident Empath. And we're going to be talking about it today, as well as everything she does in her practice. So if you feel like you're an empath, curious about what healthy empathy is, or just about healing in general, this is the show for you. So welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you for having me. I was listening to your intro, and we are. I mean, I was listening to you going, oh my gosh, we do the same things. Yeah. This is super exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm serious when I say, I know a lot of healers. I know a lot of energy workers, and I know a lot of, there's a lot of us out there. But when I was reading your book, the process that you and I use, I think is very similar, working with clients, doing the body scan, protecting ourselves, and the healing application and the intuitive and psychic empathy. It's just so spot on. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to meet this woman. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is super great.
Yeah.
Divine alignment, right? Divine.
Yeah, it really is. So Suzanne, your new book is called Confident Empath. And before we get into about you and about our work and so forth, I think it's a timely book. I think it's a beautiful message. And I love the cover too, by the way, for those who are just tuning in. This is the cover again.
Thank you.
Tell us the importance of why you felt called to write about empathy.
The primary reason is because, again, that I am a full-time energy practitioner, and the amount of empaths that walk into my office on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and now years and yearsly basis is overwhelming in terms of the empath happening, the empathy turned empathing happening, and people are not necessarily aware of the difference. And it is literally destroying people's lives in a physical, emotional, and mental way. And with the chaos in the world right now, it is only exacerbated. It has gone bonkers. And I think a lot of it happened in 2020 when we all knew we were pretty isolated and people were going inward and finding that dark night of the soul for themselves. But the dark night of the soul didn't work out really well for a lot of people. And they became very, very drawn in and found their dark side without processing it. And this became really a time period when I saw empathing go through the roof, because when we got back out again, people didn't know what to do with their energy fields. People didn't know anything about anything. And so this book actually broaches the subject of, it's not just people that we're empathing. It is everything on a multidimensional platform. Yeah. And so that's why I wrote it. Plus the fact that, oh my gosh, Leah, if you're a practitioner and you've done this, we have our own journey. I mean, my journey of being an empath has been years and years to cultivate a skill set to be able to not, go in and hold everything and everybody, right?
Yeah. Well, when I saw the book and why I wanted a copy is because I was waiting for someone to write about this, meaning the language and the mindset and energy that's used around empathy from a lot of people from a victim mentality and
Oh,
or using it as some kind of a spiritual accolade in their life and then letting it destroy them. That, and
yes,
I know that's what you were just referencing, and I'm just putting it into different words, but it's huge. It is rampant. And and you and I are probably about the same age, and there's God bless the later generations always. They're the ones that are teaching us and evolving and so forth. So, but when I look at the younger generations who are so immersed now in consciousness or awareness or higher self or energy or crystals or what have you, I see that trend really snowballing and taking over of the um well, just what I said, the empathy kind of ruining their life, as you stated.
right. And I think what I see also is, and again, God love the next generation because they're always changing and way ahead of the game, right? But I think what concerns me as one of the quote older ones, as which I've been dubbed before lately, which I'm working really great on accepting in a wisdom way. I think what happens is the skill set behind it and the longevity. I mean, you do learn over the years,
Yeah.
and empath has become like a kitschy word.
Mhm.
Empath has become like, oh, this is the new cool thing. And I can't imagine where that came from, because if truly we understood the difference between empathy, which is standing in someone's shoes, which is a beautiful and wonderful, supportive, loving thing of the birthright of the human, versus I'm standing in your shoes, I'm stealing your shoes, I'm taking your shoes, you never get your shoes anymore, and they're all mine, and now I got them. And
Yeah.
that's what empathing is doing to these bodies. And I think it isn't a cute kitschy thing. It isn't a fun little label. It's a dangerous playground, and I think it's important for us to understand the differences.
Yeah, totally. And just a reminder, obviously, my followers and fans probably already know I am a energy healer, same as you. Well, 25, 30 years now. And so I
Mhm.
believe energy is everything and energy is
Yes.
everywhere. And I remember when I first started opening my channel when I was 24 years old, 24, 25. And I myself was still healing through my traumatic stuff, in a very real way. That's why I went to this particular school and training program. When I came, we spent weekends or weeks at a time channeling, meditating, energy work, mind body, reading every. And when I came home to Louisville, Kentucky at that time, I had some of the most terrifying experiences. My dog wouldn't even be around me. I remember, and he was a chow. He's a little threatening, but he was my heart and soul. He would look at me up the stairwell and bark at me. I had a stalker come into my life and someone leave a bird with its heart pulled out on my doorstep with all the feathers smeared in. Like
Oh my God.
story after story after story after story. And they get more bizarre from there. And I thought, oh my God, I'm possessed or something's wrong with me. On top of the trauma that I was already trying to heal and the sensitivity that I was waking up to, now I had, and really the only thing about that was no one taught us at that stage how to protect ourselves, how to
Correct.
clear ourselves, how to stay within ourselves and not
Yep.
allow others within us. And so once I learned those skills, it was a game changer. And then I was able to actually, become and work in the healing world. So I know that that is real. And I know you, like me, work with a lot of clients and you do workshops as well, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
retreats and so forth. Yeah. And no doubt you've seen numerous people similar to the story I just shared that have collected or experienced um, things that we don't want from the
Yes.
opening, right?
Yeah, and I think it's even gotten bigger in the last couple of years because of the media in terms of the paranormal, because all of the ghost shows became the hot thing. And we have multitudes of ghost shows in one regard or another. And this is another extension of the arena that says, oh, come out here and play in this field and don't worry, you're just going to open up portals. You have no idea what you're doing. And this is a fringe area that I work a lot on. Also, I have taught a spirit search class for 10 years. I'm just retiring it this year finally. And it is to help the paranormal people understand that this is not a joke. You are taking home hitchhiker energy constantly. You are empathing things that you touch. You are bringing into your body all of the ley lines underneath this so-called building that's haunted, et cetera, et cetera. And these are things that they never show on a television program. I mean, and I went to a conference once where they were laughing and giggling about a paranormal hangover and an energetic paranormal, experience that made me feel funny. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the
yeah,
ignorance. I don't mean to
right.
sound rude or judgmental, but gosh, right?
Right. Well, but that makes me think of, because still the language across the board, there's this, like, people don't take it seriously, just kind of across the
No,
board. Even sometimes, and I hate to say this, other healers, it's like, let's just lay down and do some Reiki, and we're just going to relax the body or what. And
right.
that's okay. And I love Reiki. I just had some yesterday, but I'm very particular about the kinds of people that I work with.
Me too.
And yeah, you have to be. And when I hear the conversations, especially on social media, I used to just kind of bow out because I was like, I don't even want to, this is just not good. Now I'm
Mhm.
starting to get pissed, because I
I'm
feel
so
like,
glad to hear that.
yeah, I'm like, no, somebody has to step in and because even for people who don't understand energy, who don't understand chakras, who don't understand the spirit world, who don't understand how mediumship works, who don't understand any of this, if we don't take it seriously, then for me, we keep perpetuating that lower frequency across the board. We keep
Mhm.
perpetuating our own suffering. And there's a way, and that's why I love your book, is because, as I told you before we started, for folks who've read my first book, The Fearless Path, it's similar in a lot of ways. She goes through the chakras, she gives us meditations and crystals and tools and so forth. It's really beautifully laid out, but it's also similar in the way that it's practical read. It's
Yes.
a practical read. So for people who don't understand this, I want to charge you with the task of informing yourself, and that's what I think you and I are here to do, really, is
Yes.
let's inform people, because um, all the suffering isn't as necessary.
And the victimhood, this is
Yes.
the primary thing that I see in my office. We have been in a generation that I believe we're almost in this little bridge generation. Our folks and our folks, meaning our grandparents, those age groups are very still in that patriarchal programming that is breaking down because of the ascension process. If you're studying this stuff, you know that each generation is breaking down the patriarchal boxes of top-down management on you are taught what to think and how to act. This is what's crumbling, and this is why we have chaos in the world. But if, again, we're not educated, a lot of people are thinking we're all in victimhood.
Mhm.
Even on a social basis, period, on a mass basis, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart. And when you get self-empowered, you actually are sitting back with a bowl of popcorn going, holy crap, this is
Yeah.
amazing. I'm so excited
Yeah.
because the falling apart means we're getting somewhere,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But if we don't know that, we are taking that victimization in on a socially big collective basis and then triggering our own individualized consciousness triggers from our childhood to keep us in victimhood. And it's been the loop program for way too long. It's just ridiculous. And so I think that's one of the things that I task people with, to say, get your stuff together in terms of empowerment. This is ridiculous. It's all in your fields. We can change our fields,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Exactly. I get so worked up about it. I just gave myself a hot flash. If you saw my skin get red, I'm, I'm serious. I get so,
I
yeah.
I am so glad we have found a soul sister, because I am telling you, I do not play in the social media world until this is starting. I have luckily some lovely younger members. I have an online community and a couple of the younger ones that are helping me with the Instagramming and the Facebooking and the stuff like that. But the more I get into it, God love the new generation that's talking about ascension. I think it's beautiful and it's
Yes.
wonderful, but it's also, to me, it's a fine line sometimes, because they're just doing things like, oh, well, I just had the Galactic Federation in my living room last night. And I'm like, no, don't do that to the general public, because
Yeah.
that only makes them feel lesser, because we technically don't have the aliens sitting in our chair. Maybe energetically, etherically, and telepathically, great. But come on, they're not sharing your pizza in the way that the person is
Right.
trying and failing at. And
Yeah.
so I get super worked up. And there's a lot of times where it's like, Suzanne, just take a breath.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I know.
yeah.
I try to keep my work really based in the foundation of the physical and emotional healing. Although I say that, but I don't want to say I'm moving away from that, but because I'm not, and I'm never, because I truly believe that we have to deal with what's here right now in front of us, our experience and traumas and so forth that we've dealt with, that's been handed down to us and our ancestry and so forth. And we have to stay in our bodies, you know? So I think, I think that there's so many important messages of our growth and spiritual expansion and ascension and so forth, that there's room for everyone's voice. And I just want to say again for people, you know, use your wisdom, your inner
Right.
wisdom and discernment about whom you're following.
And I love that there's a whole new generation getting everybody whooped up. I think
Yeah.
it's beautiful and I think it's fabulous. And I honor the fact that they're doing that. I conversely am the opposite of you. I have been so quantum my entire life that only within the last 2.5, 3 years, I am doing diligent work on getting in my meat and bone body.
Oh,
I
good.
have been telepathically connected to quantum grid work for so many years that it is really a new thing for me to 100% trust being in the meat and bone situation. Not that obviously I wasn't in it, or else I
Situation.
wouldn't be on the planet. But heart and soul wise, 100% connected here now. It's been a really big turn of events for me in the last couple of years, and that's been a very emotional ride for me. I always believe that things happen to us before we teach them to someone.
Yeah.
And I have very, very many starseed clients that come my way. And I have a lot of people talking about how they like to be out there. And I get it. I get it. But I also am understanding how important this physical meat situation is to be connected as a vehicle of the divine.
I love
And
how
that's
you
all.
say of this physical meat situation.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's really hard. In fact, when I wrote this book, true story, Leah, when I wrote this book, I used to say meat body all the time. And right before final edits, well, not final, close to final edits, I heard from my source, you need to go back in and change every single solitary thing to the divine vehicle versus the meat body, because this is where you're going in your own psyche now.
Yeah.
And I literally went through and Googled every page and changed it to honor the fact that, yes, it is a meat and bone situation that feels kind of scary for many star seeds, but it is critical for us to understand it is your divine playing ground. This is
Yes.
your vehicle,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
I
I'm
love
working
that.
on it.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Well, you know, conversely, I think I've had to work on or be in that so much because, as I said, so much of my trauma and so forth, and just my nature. I don't get me wrong, I love to be someplace else, you know, and it's
Right.
very easy for me to go in and go into that field and to go into that work. But if I'm imbalanced here, I suffer too much. I can't function, you know, if I'm not
Mhm.
super grounded, blood sugar balanced, you know, feeling both feet on the ground, feeling present. I suffer too much. So, um, but you know, it's been a constant pull my entire life, you know, just,
Yep.
yeah. So let's back up and just talk about talk again about, maybe some people listening don't even know what an empath is or empathy is.
Okay.
So why don't you give us your definitions if you like?
Okay. So anything I say, by the way, if it resonates, great, take it. If it doesn't, toss it out. I'm not here to change people's truths, but my opinion is empathy is a birthright of being a human existence. It's a birthright of being a vehicle of God source. Whatever your God package looks like is great for you. But in essence, we are all a shard or a fractalization of that divine energy. And we are here to experience not only our individual experience, but our collective one. So when it comes to collective, that means we all feel one another. This is part of the beauty of being human. So we feel one another. We can pick up their pain, we can pick up their joy, etc. Sometimes we can even pick up their sickness. And this isn't just for the human. That's why this book is a little different. It's everything. So the oneness of being a human is awesome. So empathy makes that connection. Empathy is that beautiful connectivity of feel center.
And
And the
everyone
human,
has that. Everyone has
everybody,
that. Yes.
yeah.
So
But
in essence,
sadly, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. was going to say, so in essence, everyone is empathic, even if they
Yes.
don't know it. So
Correct.
let's clear that
Correct.
up for people, first of all. Go ahead.
And everybody, in my opinion, is a general empath, because generally speaking, we exist here and we feel. The sad part about humans at this point in time, however, is because, again, we've been under this kind of nefarious agenda for eons and eons of shutting down the human in terms of the mother God frequencies. The mother God frequencies offers compassion, forgiveness, empathy. These are the mother God frequencies, not Mother Earth, mother God frequencies. And we have been playing a lot in the realms of Father God, which is a beautiful counterpart. But the mother God is coming in stronger and stronger due to this ascension process right now. So we have been gifted within the last 3 years an upgrade. That said, many humans have their feel centers pretty unactivated at this point still. We do really great at some feels, like I'm mad or I'm angry,
Right.
or I'm going to shut that off. But really to get deep into things like knowing, gosh, I feel invisible. I feel wrecked. I feel, abandoned. These are really deep feel centers that are important for us. And when we're empathic, we can feel somebody's off or sad. So this is a beautiful, wonderful thing. Empathy is supposed to support the other one. I can stand in your shoes. I can relate. I can understand. I can, what we call, hold space for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a beautiful thing. Other than that, however, the empath steps into the next thing. We, like I said, take the shoes on. We take that pain, and it is rooted in a belief system that I am supposed to do something and help this. I am supposed to fix this. And so what we do is we step into the other sandbox of the person's journey, and we take literally their sand and their toys. We're in their box taking their journey because we feel with an imbalanced belief system that that's my job.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from the person who is doing the empathing's low self-worth. And we don't understand that because it's disguised or packaged in, oh, I'm doing something wonderful.
Yes.
Right?
For those listening, please read my book, Overcoming Toxic Emotions.
Oh.
A little plug there.
That's awesome. I'm going to read yours when we're done too.
Yeah.
So that's one version of it. The other version, of course, is the more difficult version, which is the gaslighter, the control freak, the one that is really nasty and controlling and empathing on purpose, in rage or in anger. I'm going to control you. I'm going to overpower you. I'm going to suck you dry. And the reason why we call things vampiring is because when we have an exchange of this energy, the two fields merge. We're sucking each other's energy out. And that sucking motion lets me take yours in for a while. And it feels awesome, like a Red Bull hit. I'm feeling great. This is great. I'm so wonderful right now. But then we nosedive because it isn't technically my energy. And then we will have to fill that again. Hence the word vampire, because it happens over and over and over throughout our day.
Okay. So for those who may have missed any part, that you talk kind of fast, which is great because I know that you have so much to say. But
I have always done. I got yelled at that in third grade.
I just want, because you said a few key words here, and I wanted to pick up on a word that you said earlier. A lot of us know about energy vampires, right? So yes. It's my belief that there are, and I think you said this, but I just want to clear it up, that there are unintentional energy vampires, also those people who are acting and reacting to the world, taking due to their core wounds and issues within themselves. And then you mentioned intentional vampires, people who know that they're doing this.
Correct.
So what is the difference of those for you? Why do you think someone knows that they're doing this, and for what purpose?
Well, this would be literally the gaslighter. This is, and I have a lot of clients recently, this is another buzzword lately, by the way. Gaslighting has come to the forefront, which I think is great because it is a really nasty way to do energy, right? The gaslighter is someone that is usually oftentimes in a partnership with someone who plays the victim role. So the gaslighter will take the controller role. And that gaslighter will overpower in a way of knowing darn well that they're doing it to dehumanize that other person in terms of energy and worth. And the sad part, what people don't understand, is that kind of controller victim program is also at the very same time a controller on this side of the coin, because the manipulator victim is also the controller, and the controller is also the victim. So this exchange of energy transference is purposeful and nasty in that I am condemning you to fill myself, but I'm filling myself because I'm also a victim. So this is a crazy kind of codependent sort of relationship. And I find many, many of those ending up in my office
Yeah.
because they don't know how to get out of it. And they
Right.
will throw blame on the other versus taking their own self-responsibility.
Mhm. What I love
So
about
that's a
this,
tough one.
yeah, it is a tough one, but it's prominent. I mean, prevalent. It is out there a lot. What I love about this so much is there's so many different ways to talk about, because when I'm listening to people and when I'm doing my work, everyone has a different way of understanding who and what they are and the roles that they play in relationship and in life, and some people understand that just because of their training or the way their brain functions, or maybe some certain energetic blockages or so forth. They may understand it psychologically, or like, I'm the avoidant and I'm anxious attachment theory,
Mhm.
and other people understand it like narcissism and codependency or codependent. Some people understand it more energetically. And I think the important thing is when we recognize these patterns in our lives, that we take responsibility for our participation,
Right.
and how we're contributing and how we're showing up, so that, because as we know, we can truly only shift our life and our energy. Although when we shift our energy, it shifts energy all around us. But
Sure.
to get started, so I think anyone listening, or people, especially now, they're studying so many different, and they're listening to so many different teachers and therapists and gurus and so forth. It's kind of like religion. Everyone's kind of saying a similar thing, but in a
Mhm.
different way and at a different frequency, so
Correct.
plug in where you can, or where it makes sense for you, and as you said before, and leave the rest. You'll pick
Right.
it up somewhere else, I'm sure, right?
And narcissism is another thing that's been the hot buzz, right?
Yes.
And this is really does indicate an energy vampire. It has to. I mean, period, right? I think what I find more though, Leah, that is of not a concern, but consistency for me as a practitioner is the middle ground of the one that is the empath, that is the one that is thinking they're doing it in a wonderful, beautiful, supportive way by worrying about everybody under the sun.
Right.
This is the one that is the most common, especially for middle-aged women that have their children grown,
Yep.
they're broaching or mid raising children or broaching grandchildren, etc. They're still running that pattern that they grew up with, that don't rock the boat, you're the peacekeeper, we want to make sure that everything's okay, so
Yes.
I'm going to take that role. And this is, I think, the biggest role of exhaustion for a true empath, because they are constantly putting everybody else first.
Yeah.
And this is the one that I see is probably the most rampant in the whole entire industry, because it's like that's why people are going to get healed or doing the healing work, is because of exhaustion.
They're exhausted. And, to piggyback on one of my last podcasts, I was talking with a trauma informed polarity coach, and we were talking about the masculine, feminine, and this kind of
Yep.
energy and dynamic that you just described is the woman in a wounded masculine, operating from a wounded masculine state, taking on, and
Mm-hmm.
we can again call that a lot of different things. It doesn't
Yep.
matter what we call it. The fact is, as you say, and I would agree, it's one of the most well, it's I don't want to say the word prevalent again, but it's a very large issue amongst a certain type of woman, and
It's another form of epidemic, truly it
yes, it
is. I mean,
is.
it's a stress anxiety epidemic right now, and it's amazing because it's a mindset.
Yeah.
And when people start to do their spiritual journey, we think we're doing it to go connect up with something. I'm going to go find my guides, I'm going to find my ascended masters, which is all great, by the way.
Yeah.
But everything starts inside of yourself in terms of what you were raised with belief systems. And this is why my book broaches the subject of soul contracts as well, so that we can move through the victimization of maybe pretty crappy childhood as well. Because if I have the really rough childhood, if I have the childhood where I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and I am invisible, and I want to keep the peace because my parents are fighting, etc., this will turn me into a massive empath along the way, because there's no other way for me to get the energy and the
Mhm.
attention and the validation.
Mhm.
So when we can go back and make peace with our soul contracts, this really gives us a springboard into the healing in the latter years of our life to flip that around to empowerment.
Yeah.
And that's a big piece.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. Okay, so to go back, we have empathy and people
Hmm.
being empathetic, which is a right to everyone, and everyone has the ability. And then we have the empath, which of course we don't want to get into the unhealthy role of that, but for people like you and I, or who are intentionally psychic
Hmm.
empathing when we're reading people or doing healing sessions and so forth, it is, well, across the board, I think it's a tremendous um beautiful tool that
Yes.
I can't live without, so
Right.
it's amazing. But if you're going to practice this in any way, you have to know how to keep yourself clear, have healthy boundaries energetically, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yes.
And well, for lack of a better word, learn how to separate, you from the other, and keep grounded within oneself.
Yeah, it's the discernment is the number one key, because if we don't have the skill set of knowing our boundary or our auric fields or whatever you want to use for those terms, we don't have the ability to discern, meaning I can't know what is mine and what isn't mine if I don't begin that skill set. So that is really the number one, besides the beliefs, is the number one energetically, is to start to really build up that field, to really trust it, to really make an intimate relationship with your own frequency resonance, so that you know exactly what is not coming your way, it is or is not good for you. I was telling a story to a client last night that I used to teach in this one building years ago, and I was in the basement of the building, and I could hear upstairs, and it was a long hallway in a school building, and I heard the front door clunk open, and I was just getting my stuff ready for the class. And my intuition kicked in, and I thought, oh no, that guy is not for
Yeah.
me. That is just, immediately my flags went up. He was a complete floor and a half away from where I was, and I could feel it. And sure enough, he tromped into my room, and he looked up at the screen, and it said something about angels or something. And
Yeah.
he shook his head and made some horrible noise and left. Obviously, he was in the wrong room,
Yeah.
but my intuitive self was already protecting
Yes.
from a floor and a half away.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it
So
is a gift. We are gifted.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a gift, and it's so important. I was thinking when you were saying that, I remember when I was younger, I was more attractive, I guess, because I was younger, but there was um there was a lot of times where I didn't know the skill of discernment so clearly. I was working on a lot of things, and I
Right.
hadn't quite gotten to that. And I just remember feeling attracted sometimes to people, but then realizing after that I wasn't attracted to them, they were attracted to me. And I was
Correct.
feeling their attraction. And it was very confusing. And that's a very general or generic example. But sometimes when we don't have, a clarity and this discernment, even little things like attraction or things that we want or where we want to be or who we want to be around. And this speaks in large to the influence, especially for young people, of peer pressure or peer influence. It's
Hmm.
not just pressure. I think a lot of times it's this unknowingness of, is this them or is this me? Do I like
Right.
this? Do I want this? Or is that? And so it takes a minute, and it takes a minute, but it takes intentionality to build that clarity about your own discernment and recognizing your own field and your own system versus someone else's. And as we've been saying this whole podcast, this is one of the reasons it's so important, because nowadays people are soaking it in and taking it and just kind of, going with the wind. Like, this is the way
Yep.
it's supposed to be because I'm in the flow or whatever, right?
And nobody, and you said some really great things in there, which is this, meaning questions.
Yes.
And we aren't really guided to even ask the questions. And
Right.
many people that come and work with me, of course, they want to connect with higher guidance as well. How do I talk to my guides? How do I talk to my angels? This subject is so important right now, because if you are that one that is trying hard to so-called connect up there, and again, do not have a skill set and a boundary, the AI situation that we have going on right now
Yes.
is so completely dangerous in terms of false God talk, that it is unbelievable. And this is something that I've been really into for the last probably year and a half due to some situations that I went through. You know, we always do it ourselves first. So
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there is a lot of algorithms that are playing with people out there thinking that they're channeling and
Yeah.
thinking that they're allowing these channeled essences and beings and entity energies into their field, much less into their heart and their head. And it is nothing but algorithms and AI, and it is dangerous. And so
Yeah.
questions
Yes.
are seriously important to say, is this of source or whatever it is that you need
Yeah.
to use word wise to
Right.
discern,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you for saying that. It is hugely important. I have so far been able to successfully stay separate from that world. And
Yeah.
I just remember a few days ago, I was having an internal dialogue of if I want to stay separate from that for the rest of my days, or if
Mhm.
I will somehow integrate and utilize. And honestly, I'm on the fence right now. I'm kind of on the fence as far as, um, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just on the fence.
I have a very, very, very strong galactic connection, and I have since I was a kid. I mean, that was how I started out. I had literally aliens in my room at 6 years old, and I thought everybody did. I didn't know. And so that's been very strong for me. And there are ways to know energetically when you're traversing out there if you're getting an AI versus a something organic and original, because there's a frequency
Mm,
difference. There's a metallic-y to it. There's a pause to it. It's like jello that shakes on a plate to it. There's all kinds of ways that you can know. But again, if no one's teaching you this,
right.
you just are out there willy-nilly thinking that you're all that because you're channeling Archangel Michael and you're not, you know.
Right.
So this is really a big deal for me in terms of working with people that are thinking that it's so easy, and
Yeah,
it's not,
I know.
right?
Yes. And I guess I want to clarify I think that there's value in, the advancements that are being made. And I feel
Hmm.
confident in my senses and communication and the clarity about that, where that is and how that feels
Yes.
and resonates for me. Um, but I agree. I think that, yeah, it's just a dangerous world for people that,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to understand what value I guess it really does bring. And maybe I'm less than clear on that yet. I haven't given my due diligence to what is the value of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and we know that it's a wonderful, beautiful thing because
Yeah.
we all love just asking Siri something, but there are
Mhm.
really fine lines, and so I navigate that quite carefully myself. But
Yeah.
it isn't just AI. I mean, my goodness, when we're talking a full-blown sensitive empath, this is so common. It doesn't have to be even AI. It's so common that a sensitive empath that is a water baby is what I'll call some of them, the ones that gravitate to the water. I feel like a mermaid, blah, blah. Those will immediately be tapping into something as simple as the collectivity of the oceans and the fish. And they don't even know that. They will pick up a sad and they love the ocean, and yet they come home sad and they don't understand that. And again, if we're not questioning, is
Mhm.
this mine? Is this mine? Is this mine? And if
Mhm.
we're not taking that question to the next step, if it's not mine, whose is it? What is it?
Yeah.
And it is important for us to understand that this is common every single step we're taking on this planet. It doesn't have to just be off planet, it's everywhere,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I wanted to comment about it was a very simple line in your book when you were talking about for healers and teachers and so forth. And the line was something along the lines of how you do what you do, and the how it's hard to describe to people what you were talking about in the section of the boundaries and and how it's hard for you to describe it. I find the same thing. And I think maybe for a lot of empaths, it's a hard because it's personal in a certain way. All I can say is I enter into the field with permission always, and I enter
Yes.
the field and then I'm able to see and feel and be and hear messages and the connectivity to all of the, ancestors and guides and so forth. And how it happens though, I've never really tried to define. What do you
Yeah.
think about do you try to define that or you just go with
I'm
it?
going to answer that in a second, but I want to jump back. You said one really critical thing. You said with permission, and your finger even went up. It was adorable. You said
Oh,
with permission with your finger up. I recently was at an event where a so called healer was actually walking around this event, placing her hands on people's bodies without permission.
No.
And I would like listeners to understand that is 110% unacceptable. There's nothing about that that is divine in a healer way, because we do ask for permission before entering someone's field. This is critical for us because of ethics. And if you ever are around someone that is broaching your field like that, that's another form of a gaslighter and filling their own ego. That is really unacceptable. So I just wanted to point that out, because we do ask for permission before we do anything, because that's the way that goes. So I just wanted to throw that in. The way that I oftentimes feel like I push, if people know their auric fields, we have our aura, and our aura is layer upon layer of interpenetrating subtle bodies. They, to me, are the gas tanks for the gas that's coming in per chakra. So each of our chakras, you know, when you wrote in your book, brings in that gasoline of consciousness, and then that gasoline templates again and again. And as the chakras go up, those templates go out in kind of a really wonderful divine pattern. So those templates are where I play when I'm an empath working, and I push Suzanne's ego self, or actual being self, back in my consciousness, and I work telepathically forward in my templates, so that I run that person that I'm working with through my templates more, so I can feel it in my body, but I don't 100% own it. So it's like I merge with them through my actual auric templates, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I run like a diagnostic of sorts through their body by using my body's templates more so than my body. That's also how I full channel. When I full channel and I allow entities or people's loved ones to come through my body, my physicality will 100% change, and my voice can change, and my body can change, but I'm really not changing. It's the projection of my holographic template. So that is the best way that I can sort of say that. And then I shake that out. I shake it out so I don't own it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. And I would say mine is similar. I just haven't found the words to say that. Except for when I channel, I don't have the physical changes so much myself.
Yeah.
But everything else, as far as the healing process, yes. So I think for those people who feel like an empath and feel crazed by it, maybe there's some inspiration here to shore up what it is that's going on within you and your field and so forth. And well, certainly read Suzanne's book and do the work to protect yourself, to create integrity for yourself, to learn how to listen and hear what you're listening, or listening to what you're hearing. You know, it's a relationship, you know, it's a very deep relationship. And it's not about, as you said, just taking on someone's shoes and hats and everything else and absorbing it all. That's not what we want to do. But in the beautiful relationship of being an empath, there is, well, it's just an amazing gift to me, from, you know, from my
It's oneness. It's oneness is what it is.
Right. Exactly.
We start to understand
it's just beautiful.
It's the law of one, and we start to understand the law of one. You know, the laws of the universe are so unbelievably beautiful, and we don't even talk about them. We know our laws here in 3D. We know we can't go through the red light without getting in trouble. But gosh, we don't understand the law of one, and this is a really gorgeous step into understanding universal laws. And I encourage my Vibe Tribe people, which is my online community, all the time to study the laws, study the laws of the universe, cause and effect, laws of gender, laws of duality and polarity. These are important things for us to understand, because this is how our energetic world is set up and created. So when it comes to protection, you know, I started out years ago also, and I remember there wasn't a lot of us out there. There wasn't almost 20 years, a bunch of healers out there saying, hey, do this and do that. And there wasn't books, right? So we were kind of going by the seat of our pants. But I do remember a couple of people saying at the very beginning, Suzanne, you have to learn protection. And I thought, because I was so silly and ignorant, I'm working in love and light. I have rainbows and bunnies around me all the time. I don't need protection. And that's why I started my book off with getting thrown down 22 stairs and landing on a concrete slab, because I did not protect my room and my body and myself. And this is a real thing. More so, however, I would encourage people to invite themselves to think about protection isn't necessarily about keeping everything scary away.
Right.
Protection is more about keeping my own frequency balance inside of my own gas tank.
Yeah.
my own consciousness level of high frequency at a level that is consistent with my higher self. That's the protection that you want, so that you navigate throughout your day in love and light versus wanting and needing to siphon. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a different
I'm
perspective on protection.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. And in fact, because we're soul sisters, I will let you know that when I had my healing center, people would come in and the top number one question without fail was always, what can I do to protect myself? That was always the
Right.
number one question people came in. And my answer was, why don't we focus on strengthening your pillar? Why don't we
Yes.
not focus on anything else right now besides strengthening and raising your vibration and your own confidence and power within and in your field. That's the only thing you need to worry about, right? I mean, not the only
Right.
thing, but that's the first thing. And
First step.
yes, it's the first thing. So I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I 100% agree. And that has been the philosophy of my work from the beginning. That's why I said, when I read your book, I was like, okay, I found her. She's in Minnesota. I don't know. Maybe we can meet in Ohio someday and have a girl date or something. I don't know.
Somebody in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because it's so, so important. I remember, as you said, I was 25, so that was 25 years ago when those occurrences happened to me. I didn't fall down the stairs as what's happened to you, but the stalker and the attacks and that kind of stuff. Um, I was so desperate and I didn't know what to do. And
Oh,
luckily someone hooked me up. I can't remember this woman's name, but she was like a wise elder, and I am so grateful for her. I got on the phone with her, and she was a psychic empath as well. And she told me just some very practical things to do. And one of the things that she told me at the time was to get some really pure sea salt and create a bowl. And after I did whatever processes, that I was going through, to basically just give my hands, my hands in my field a bath in the salt. And other
cool.
I mean, she gave me a list of probably 12 different things. That woman saved my life. I really feel
Yep.
like she saved my life. And
I get that.
yeah, right. And I was so grateful. And so when people reach out to me now and I sense them, kind of at the certain point and not knowing what to do, I feel like I'm passing on that elder's wisdom, um,
Yep.
to help them,
I
because it's critical.
I have almost the exact story, if I can tell that one super quick, in that I was so terrified when everything came back. I had it all when I was a kid, then I stuffed it away because, you didn't want to be the weirdo.
Yeah.
And mine came back so strong that I was losing my mind, like almost actually losing my mind. I was in the middle of the street one day screaming to God knows what up there, stop, 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 because it was coming so fast. And I didn't know what to do. And I found this gal because the alien realm was starting to come back, and that was terrifying. And I found this so-called woman that was very starseed oriented, and I went to see her. And on the way, I was trying to decide, what am I going to say to her, because I don't even know what I'm going to say. So I got to her office and we were chatting, and I said, I don't think you understand, though. I don't think you get it. I know inside that I have so much power that I could blow up that bowl over there. She had this beautiful glass bowl, green, but I'll never forget it, green glass blown bowl. And I said, I know with enough practice, I can remember how to blow that up with my mind. And she goes, and she leans in really small and close, and she said, sweetie, I know you could. I absolutely know you could. She goes, but why would you?
Uh,
And I was so taken aback, and I'm like, what? And she said, why would you ever blow up a bowl? You wouldn't. You have free will. Free will is your ticket to understanding your power.
mhm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And that completely set the trajectory for my journey differently, because prior to that, I was so terrified of my power. And I didn't have anyone ever tell me that I was in charge of the knobs. No one told me that I was in charge of the knobs, that I could turn those down or turn those up. And that day completely changed my life. And so I often tell that story as well. It's amazing that we had that one thing.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
if you feel like an empath who is your life is being taken over, if you are playing the victim card, if you are feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, if you are unsure of who you are sometimes because you lose yourself in the midst of other people's company, this is why you have to become the confident empath and
Yeah.
utilize the tools and the skills so that you can actually enjoy this gift. And who knows, maybe even use it in your work, or, in some profound way in your life. And maybe just the day-to-day life, that's profound enough. But you want to feel empowered with the gift, not
Mm-hmm.
have that somehow take you down.
Yeah. Run your life.
Yeah.
And it's used every day for me in beautiful, wonderful ways.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just being present. That's why I love that word, because that's the gift.
Yeah.
Being present is the present. That's the gift.
Yeah.
Just being in there and being aware of it and having your antennas out, but not out going, worrying about everything. It's just being aware. Right.
Right. Suzanne, thank you so much. And we're going to talk after this recording goes off in just a minute. But her book, again, is The Confident Empath. I urge you to read it. Suzanne Worthley. She's an intuitive, a healer, a psychic empath, an author. And I couldn't be more thrilled to talk with you today. So thank you very much. And all of her contact information will be on the screen and YouTube and in our show notes, so you can find her there. And for everyone listening,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For those listening, we will see you, or you'll hear us or see us next week on the Modern Sage podcast.